My first stop was Price, Utah. I've driven through Price so many times. I had no idea that there was so much archaeology and so much history around the city. It was fun to stop with Jay and his wife. They let me sleep in their house for 2 nights, and they showed me the area. Jay is one of those curious people who looks at everything and looks deeply into everything. A truly Renaissance man. In this picture, he's showing some ancient ruins or ancient spots. We think it might have been a holy place. There were some Native American images on these rocks that you might be able to see. I kind of went over them a little too quickly, I think, as I was filming this. And it's kind of been desecrated. We want to label our things that we see. We put our names on sacred places that we don't have that sensitivity sometimes. Jay does have that sensitivity. He's a respecter of all life and all people. He's had an interesting and a very interesting life. I'm not going to talk about everything that we talked about, but as you listen to his interview, you'll be able to see a little bit into the heart and mind of Jay. Are you ready to answer the 3 dream questions?
I am.
Okay. The first question is, what are your hopes and dreams?
Well, my main hope in life is to be a centurion.
You want to live 100 years?
I want to be 100 years old.
Oh.
And I think that on or near my 100th birthday, I think that I want all my children to be there with me, and I want them to still be alive and to still be a part of my life. But I'm very much looking forward to being 100 years old. I think that I have longevity in my family. I don't think it'll be too outlandish for me, since there's centurions in my family. My dad's brother died at 106, sister at 104, my grandmother at 104. So I think it's there. I think that's a good dream to have. My hope in living to be a centurion and living to be 100 years old is that I can provide a service for others, and so that I can do things that are good for others. I don't care if they're my friends. I don't care if they like me. I don't care if I like them.
That kind of is reflected. I was with you today on that call, and I remember you saying we would have opened the door whether you paid me or not.
Right. And that's
reflected in your business that you do.
And that's important to me. And especially being in the business that I'm in, like, for instance, if I go out to a woman's house who has the police outside of her house and her child locked in the house, she's outside, she has no money. The police tell me when they call me that she has no money. They can do one or two things: put a shoulder to the door, or I can get in the house, and I know I'm going to do it for free. But it's always been a positive thing. It's always come back on me tenfold. So whenever I've done anything like that, it's good. So that's one of my hopes, is to be
of service, helper. To be a helper. Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit.
We've talked about that with
so
Mr. Rogers.
Where do you think that comes from? Where does this come from, the service, this idea of service, this idea of living 100 years, having your family around you? Is that?
When I was younger, I was pretty much alone. I didn't start having children until later in life. And I didn't have a good childhood. My childhood, the only thing I had was what I worked for. Nobody fed me. Nobody gave me opportunities. I remember begging people for work, and people saying, well, I'll take a chance. I don't like it, but I'll take a chance. And I never let them down. I've never been fired from a job. To this day, I've never been fired from a job. Everybody's always considered me a good worker. But I don't know, when I was young, why I had such a trouble. Because people would look at me and they would sum me up, and they would come up with a conclusion that I couldn't do what they wanted me to do.
So speaking of your youth, What were did you have hopes and dreams as a child? And
I did. I had hopes and dreams of owning a home and owning a car. And I always said that was the American dream, to own a home and to own a car and to have it paid for. Today that's changed. Today, people, when I had the dream of owning a home and a car when I was a young man, people owned their homes and their cars, and I didn't know that I would ever be able to do it. A house was maybe $10,000. That was a lot of money in the 1960s. But I always knew that I would own a home at some point, and I would own a car. But I've never, since being a teenager, I've never been without a car or a place to live. Not that I've always owned a home. But today, those dreams have changed. Today, having a car and a home that's less than 50% of your income is the American dream. When I was younger, the American dream was to have it and to have it paid for in time for your retirement. And not to retire and buy something else. I always thought that I wanted to have a home and I wanted to establish myself and stay there and have the things that were important to me around me. Have my children always being able to have a base, a place to come to, even when they're old. And I thought about that when I was young, before I had children. I always thought that I would be able to provide a good home for my children and a place that would be a stable, safe place for them to come all of their lives. So
that sounds like it's happened pretty much that way too.
I feel it has.
Yeah.
I feel it has. I feel I've realized that dream. One of the things that I told my children when they were littler is that they would start school and finish school in the same place. And they did. They all started school in the same house and they lived in the same house when they finished. So to me that was important. I didn't do that when I was a child. I moved around. I went from one unstable situation to another. And I always thought, when I get older and have children, I'm going to provide things for them differently than I have had things provided for. My dad was a good guy. He just was not able to provide a role in my life. My mother made sure of that. And I always decided that I would never let that happen in my children's life, that my children would always know. And I always told my children, if they ever need my help, just call and I'll come. And if I don't have the way or means to get to you, I'll walk.
Wow. A question then, talking about your children now, if let's say that you could go back to when you were 13 years old and you can talk to yourself, your adult self can go back to your 13-year-old self and give yourself some advice. Or let's say you've got a grandchild that's 13 years old. What would you tell them today if to get them ready for them getting their dreams?
So get to a place where you can be comfortable in life, establish yourself, make good friends out of your enemies. Your friends will do you in. And to establish yourself in such a way where you have integrity and you have the respect of others and you can give the others respect. Having others respect you is wonderful. But how can you have people respect you if you don't respect them? So I think that's what my advice would be, is to find a place where you can fit in. And when I was in California, I certainly didn't fit in. It was not my clan, although growing up in San Francisco, next to Golden Gate Park, next to the De Young Museum, was like living in paradise. The park was wonderful. There was ponds. There were people sailing boats in the pond. And I remember when I was a young man making a boat that I could sail in the pond, and I engineered the boat out of a piece of wood. I used a piece of metal for the keel, and I used a cement for the weight to keep it up, and I made sails on it, and I made it so that it would always sail in a circle and come back.
So you've always been kind of we used to have a name for it, but I can't say it.
Intuitive,
Intuitive and inventive.
inventive. That's
Yeah.
good. I like that, inventive.
Yeah, and so that's. Is there anything else you'd like to say about your goals and your dreams, or advice, or?
Well, my goals and dreams, like I said, I'd like to be able to live in Price and to provide that stable environment for my children, even if they're not here. They know it's here. And I've discussed it with every one of my children, and they all know that on a moment's notice they could come here. This is their house, that they'll be welcome and they'll be accepted no matter what. So that's my dream, is to be there for them
To be there for your family.
into my 100th birthday. After my 100th birthday, I don't care.
Yeah, they can go get lost.
They'll be stable.
They'll be set because they'll be in their 80s.
That's right.
or 70s at least.
And when they come to visit me, I'll say, I don't remember who you are, but I'm glad you came. Do you have the salt shaker?
Okay.
They don't give me salt anymore.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Bring me the salt.
You like salt?
I do.
Okay.